Hello, everybody. This is JT, and welcome to the Mixed by JT podcast. This is episode 2, Getting It Out the Mud. This is going to be a great episode, so you definitely want to stay tuned. But before we get into the podcast, one thing that I didn't do last time is do a plug for the merch. I didn't plug my website. I didn't plug my studio, so my website is www.mixedbyjt.com, mixedbyjt.com. Over there, I own the studio. You can book studio time. You can buy merch, man. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, all those links on there, Facebook. Do whatever you need to do to support the podcast, man, because this podcast, I'm going to be giving out gems. I'm going to be giving out nuggets. Everything that you need to do to be able to succeed in the music industry and really make this money. I want to make sure that you are equipped to do so. So that's what I'm on, man. But not prolonging the time. You know, we got time because I'm going to spend an hour every week. Each episode is going to be about an hour long, so I'm going to make sure that anybody who is really looking to succeed in the music industry, I'm going to do everything that I can to pour into you. So, let's get into the podcast. So, episode 2, Getting It Out the Mud, man. Like, before we get into it, what does getting out the mud mean? Getting out the mud means making something out of nothing. In the music industry, we all don't come from money. In life, we all don't come from money. I live in probably one of the poorest states in a country. We are ranked dead last, unfortunately, almost in everything. I'm referring to Mississippi, and I'm from Jackson, so I'm going to share some insight because being able to be semi-successful or being able to do business in this market is not easy at all. But if you got that skill set, man, you can make money in any market regardless of how adverse your situation is, man. You really can get it. So we're going to get into this podcast, Getting It Out the Mud. What does getting it out the mud really means? You get it out the mud when you come from nothing. I don't know about the people who are listening to this podcast, but I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. I come from a single parent home. You know, I grew up where, I didn't have those tools and resources at my disposal. So for me, music was always therapeutic to me. It started out as a hobby and it became a career. For all the people who are listening to this podcast, I understand that everyone is on different levels. Some people do it for a living. Some people do it for a hobby. Some people do it for fun. For some people, it's just something to do. But this music, it's my life. I put everything that I had behind it, literally, and more. Like, I'm one of those people in Jackson, Mississippi, where all I do all day, every day is music. I don't have any other focus besides making sure that my music and my clients' music is top notch. Just making sure that the mixes are grade A. So when I wake up in the morning, I don't have to focus on going to a job. I don't have to focus on going to a 9 to 5. And for everyone who is listening to this episode right now, I want to concentrate on really teaching you how to have that determination and work ethic to really get out that job where you really don't have to go back. And I will make this statement is that I talk to artists every day. I have these conversations with artists every day. Everybody doesn't take their craft seriously because some people don't. And what I mean by that is some people don't because some people have it so good where they don't have to make money off the music. They do it as a hobby. Um, the people may be under the illusion but that they have a good job. And the reason why I say under the illusion because in my opinion, there's no such thing as a good job because you could always make more money working for yourself as an entrepreneur than you can working for somebody else. So we have these illusions, we have these lies that we tell ourselves that working for someone else is the way to go and we can't absolutely do it on our own. That's false because if you apply those principles into becoming an entrepreneur or becoming your own man, you can establish real job security because when you're working for somebody else, if someone can hire you when they feel like it, they can fire you when they feel like it. So what I would really like to iterate on this podcast is really like how to get it out the mud. And I alluded to somebody is listening to this podcast. They have a good job. You know, they say they have a little bit of money in their pocket. They have a little 401k or whatever. Their job may be matching. Yeah, I understand that. But the thing is, your music may not be making the money that you really want your music to make. And that can be an issue for most people. And I will say that most artists are, I'm not going to say in the same boat, but statistically speaking, 99% of artists, really more than 99% of artists don't make a living off their music. And it's actually even higher than that because statistically speaking, you have a better chance of becoming a professional athlete than you do at being in this music business and being in this music industry and really killing it. Just look it up. So the fact is most people aren't making music off their music. You see people, they're flashing, you know, they got these chains or whatever and whatnot. And a lot of people may look at these artists and say, man, like these artists are really winning. But at 8 o'clock every morning, Monday through Friday, or whatever shift they work, some of them may work the mid shift. Some people may work a 3 to 11. Some people may work the 11 to 6 or whatever shift this person work. At the end of the day, yeah, it looked like this person is winning, but every morning or every afternoon or every evening, these people are going to a job. And I'm not trying to use this as a way to insult anybody, because if you have a job, man, that's very honorable. In the economy that we have, in the society that we need people with jobs. We need industrialization. If you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have to create jobs and hire people to work inside your business. So I'm not saying that it's anything wrong with having a job. I'm just saying that if you really want to come in and really perfect your music, and if you really love music, music is your life, music, you know that you want to do music for a living. At the end of the day, to go to the next level, you're going to have to generate revenue off your music, because eventually it's going to come to a point where if you really want to take your music to the next level, you're going to have to come off that job, because you won't have time to do both. So one thing that I'm going to say first is you got to have a vision. What is your vision? What level do you want to take this music? Are you somebody who really want to do this music for fun, or are you somebody who want to do this music for real? And if you answer, okay, I'm the type of person who really want to do this music for real, what's your vision? I mean, what's your why? Why are you even doing this music? Are you doing this music to make money? If you're doing this music to make money, it's a 99% chance that it ain't going to work. I mean, that's just statistically speaking. So for one, if you're doing this music for money, you're looking for an immediate payoff, I mean, you never going to be able to really go out here and kill it, because statistically speaking, this is from the IRS. You know, it takes about 5 years going in consistently to build a business. It's almost a given that most businesses aren't going to be profitable for the first 2 years in business. So you're going to have to put a lot of money up. You're going to have to lose a whole lot of money. You're going to have to invest. You're going to have to sacrifice going in. And if you one of those type of artists who doing this for the money, I see it all the time. Those artists don't last long. They get a single, they put it out, then they get, just say 20, 30,000 streams or whatever. And whenever that check comes, this is not funny, but whenever the check comes and then they like, oh man, we can't even get a payout because it ain't even $25, so it has to roll over to the next pay cycle. Or they like, man, we got all these streams, like, where the money at? Then they realize, like, oh crap, streaming doesn't really make a lot of money. So a lot of people are going to take the path of least resistance, and then they realize, like, wow, like, I can go to my job, I can get paid right now, I'm gonna get a paycheck every 2 weeks, every week, or whatever, twice a month, once a month, whatever pay cycle you on. And they be like, okay, I can come get it right now. I do the work and it's guaranteed, versus going to the studio, getting in front of the fans, not getting the streams that you want. And you're like, man, like, I really can't eat off this. Like, it's a different mindset. Like, you really have to know that you're working with something. You really have to know that you have something, because when you put out a record and it doesn't get the response that you want immediately, are you going to quit? Now, this is what I see. I talk to artists about this all the time. And this is what I see. I see artists start over all the time. They don't build off anything. Every month, every quarter, you got to delete every picture on your IG. Every month, every quarter, you releasing a new single. You taking the old one down. You rebuilding from scratch, like, every time, and you're not building nothing. And this is what I try to tell artists. I tell artists, when you go and perform a show, you want your existing music to be out there, because you want the fans to be able to know your songs. You want your fans to be able to relate to your music. And I even talk about that on the first podcast when I talked about don't be afraid to start. Start with small crowds. You may only have 20 people in an audience, but if those 20 people rock with you, like, you really can make bank. So when it comes to getting it out the mud, like making something out of nothing, making it through adversity, it's just an allegory that just kind of explains what you have to do. I don't know if anybody has ever gotten a vehicle stuck in mud, before, but I will explain the process. Just say like you drive a vehicle, truck, or whatever in a mud, it gets stuck in there, and you realize like, oh crap, this is an emergency. I got to do what I got to do. So what you do, first thing that you're going to do, you're going to get in that car and you're going to mash on the gas. You're going to give it all you got. And that's how you got to do with your music, where if you're doing this music halfway, you might as well not even going to do it because you're not even going to make money. This is analogy. This is kind of like an analogy of getting it off the ground. You notice when a rocket take off, like 99% of the fuel in that rocket is dedicating to getting that rocket into the atmosphere. And you can look this up. There's a certain speed that you have to go to get a rocket into the atmosphere. It's an exact number. And if you're 1 mile per hour short, if you don't have enough momentum behind you, that rocket is going to fall back to earth. It's never going to take off. Same thing with the music career. Like, you playing around with it, you not putting your all into it. When you go to the studio, you really not smashing these records. You really not giving it your all. You performing, you not giving your all to the fans. Like, all these things, like, if you really not going in and giving this music all that you got, it's not going to take off. Same thing with business. A lot of people have never been in business or never been in sales before, so a lot of people may not understand that this is the music business, and certain things with business is universal. If you're selling cars for a living, there's a certain amount of effort you have to put into it. If you're starting a detail business, there's a certain effort that you have to put into it. If you're selling insurance, there's a certain amount of effort have to get into it. It's a certain amount of numbers you have to do. You have to know the difference between a warm market and a cold market. And that's what a lot of people don't realize in music. Like, everybody is trying to do this streaming stuff. And I tell people, based off my knowledge of sales, is that you're in a cold market. Because you say, okay, you want to do the social media thing, you want to get the numbers, it's fine. But you are going to have to do a lot of volume because you are in a cold market. Just say like the average engagement, even 10% of engagement, that's very high. You may only get like 2 to 3% of engagement of people who really going to rock with you. And for some people, they have a lot of followers, but it's less than that. That's why people can look at your numbers and see what your ratios are and see, do fans really rock with you or not, based off, okay, you post. Are 3 to 5% of people liking your post? If not, they're going to say, okay, this person doesn't have real fans. This person has bots following him. Like, this person really isn't who he say he is. Oh, this person has bought streams. Oh, this person has bought followers, because you operating in a cold market. So don't be fooled by the numbers. Don't be fooled by the streams. When you throw a show, how many people can come to that show and rock with you? That's who your real friends are. I tell artists all the time, like, be focused on interacting with the fans. Take time to meet your fans, shake their hands. That's what that merch table is all about. It's not just about you going in there, making the money, buying t-shirts. Man, you have a show, man. Go in there, work the room. Go in there, talk to those fans. And you a local artist, you have a show, it's only 5-10 people in there, only 15 people in there. That gives you the opportunity to really chop it up with people. You build new fans, you build relationships one at a time. So you're working in a warm market at that point. So at that point, you really don't have to work as hard as you do on Instagram. And that's why a lot of people's social media isn't taking off, because unless you're on there doing some goofy stuff, doing some funny stuff, or doing some stuff that's really like out of pocket, or really doing some clown stuff, chances are it's not going to take off. It's just not. So you want to be able to put your best foot forward. You want to be able to get in front of your fans. You want to be able to get in front of DJs. You want to build relationships with people. And in this game, to be honest with you, that's what's missing. Especially in our generation and the younger generations, everybody's so used to social media. People want to hit you up on Instagram. And what ends up happening is, when you hitting people up on Instagram that's not following you, they not even getting that message, because it's going to another inbox, as opposed to showing up to the club early. When the DJ is setting up, shaking this DJ hand, man, help the DJ carry equipment to and from the car, man. Like, if, you know, that may help you get in with a DJ, as opposed to play my song. Like, no, you got to shake those hands. You got to build those relationships. You have to identify who are the people who own the venue, patronize their venue, buy some food, man, be visible, support their events. Let these people know that you a cool dude, and shake their hand, chop it up with them, establish a relationship with them. Everybody who you shake hands with may not end up being a client, may not end up being a partner, but I'm telling you, you'll get better results than that. You will have better results operating in a warm market instead of a cold market. And everyone who is involved in sales, like, know that, just say, like, if you're involved in car sales, you know that everybody who comes to that car lot isn't going to buy a car. You may have to talk to 10 people. You may have to do 10 test drives or whatever to sell probably about 3 or 4 cars. You may have to run like 10 credit apps, you know, trying to get people approved. Everybody not going to get approved for a car. So next time you go purchase a car, recognize this, like, these people, they have a system. These people have a process. I remember when I bought my car, like, a long time ago, I went up to the car lot. I was a little bit of a different customer, where I wanted to buy a car using the process that I wanted to use to buy a car. And it was like, man, the salesman was not happy, because he like, okay, I'm doing this I got this process. I know what my conversion rate is and what I wanted to do. I did not want to test drive the car before they told me what the final sales price was. I didn't want to run my credit, anything, until they told me what the sales price was, because I said, I don't even want to drive this car unless I know exactly what this car costs. But they're like, no, it don't work like that. You know, I got to show you the car. I got to do my sales pitch. We got to test drive the car, whatever. But I kind of say this to say this, right? Even these people, salesmen, they have a fine-tuned process, but they know for a fact that everybody who they come in contact with isn't going to close business. And I say that to say this is that if you interact with somebody and they don't rock with your music, don't feel offended. If somebody say, I don't rock with it, I'm not feeling it. Or if you shake hands with that DJ and they diss you, you know, don't take it personal. It's business, because if you were in sales, if you were in any other business, you would have to know how to deal with that rejection and keep going. And that's why a lot of artists can't really get it up out the mud, because they can't deal with rejection. If one person doesn't like their music or they get a bad comment, they ready to take their show, they ready to take their song down. If the whole city don't rock with their music, they can't even go do a show. And that's the wrong approach, because if you are in any other business, you'll know that you gotta be able to know how to deal with rejection and keep going. Man, when you are in sales and you trying to close with a client, I mean, people will tell you a lot of things to your face, and you just gotta be professional about it and keep going. The same if you really want to make music in this industry, if you really want to get it out the mud, like, you really have to know how to be a professional in this business. So when you're working in a warm market, everybody isn't going to close with you. Everybody isn't going to rock with you. Everybody isn't going to do business with you, but you have a higher probability to succeed in a warm market than you do in a cold market. So what's a cold market? Cold market is when you aren't directly connected to the consumer, like on the internet or something like that. So when you're on the internet, your closing ratio is going to be significantly reduced. So what is a cold market? What that may look like, okay, salesmen who sell cars, when business gets slow, they may have to start cold calling. So they may have to make about 150 to 200 cold calls a day. There's people hanging up on their face, this, that, and the other, because they're working in a cold market. So they make 150 phone calls. They may only have, out of that 150 phone calls, only a small percentage of people may answer the phone, and they only may get a few appointments, and they only may get like one close out of those 150 to 200 phone calls. But they're relentless. They know when they're operating in a cold market that you're going to have to deal with significantly less results. So a lot of artists are failing because they're working in a cold market. So you really have to have that killer instinct. You really have to have that mentality that you're going to succeed no matter what. There's nothing wrong with being an internet artist or YouTube artist. You just got to realize that different principles apply. And the internet isn't going to work for everybody. The the clubs may not work with everybody. You got to know your format and what your fans really want to hear, and you have to know your target audience. So a lot of things that a lot of artists don't know because they never been in sales. A lot of people don't understand prospecting and recruiting. And this is what I mean by that is this is a business. Nobody makes it on their own. Nobody is solo dolo. I mean, you have to go out there and take the opportunity to talk to people. You have to go out there and recruit. This is what I'm seeing being connected with a lot of artists is that a lot of artists don't have producers. I'm an audio engineer. I engineer for a lot of clients. I have clients hit me up all the time looking for beats. I reached out to producers, multiple producers, and a lot of producers don't want to take the time. Come to the studio, network. I need your number. I need a connection because when I come across somebody who want to spend some money, I need look. I can get you paid. On a side note, I'm going to have to get back into making beats and really taking this thing up a notch because I cannot meet. I'm not saying that I can't. I have to continue to network. I have to continue to apply myself. But I do not have any solidified producers who are on my team who really want to put that work in and get paid. Everybody want to create that beat page on the internet, this, that, and the other. But when I say, man, I'm an audio engineer, I can get you in contact with the artist, just top it up with me. A lot of people are trying to go to the artist, and a lot of people can't get to the artist. A lot of people can't get through the inbox because they already don't have a previous relationship with the artist. If you see the way that most people come up, man, a lot of people went to school together. A lot of people are from the same neighborhood. A lot of people come from a similar background. So it's easy for them to have a point of contact. They know somebody who know that person, or it's all family. It's all love, right? But a lot of artists don't have, well, a lot of artists, and just say like a lot of producers, maybe from two different realms. So it may be difficult to make that connection if you aren't in a room. So I will give this hack to producers. If you're listening to this podcast and you want to sell beats and you can't get to the artist, get with the audio engineer. Audio engineers aren't flashy. Audio engineers not there in front of the camera because by nature what I do, I promote the artist. I don't outshine the artist. So I don't reveal my whole hand. I don't reveal everything that I know, but trust me, audio engineers have more have more connections than what you would think or what you would allude to. A lot of audio engineers have connections to the venues. A lot of audio engineers have connections with the promoters. In Jackson, Mississippi, I own my own studio. I also have mixed live in multiple venues in the city. There are a lot of things that I can't say publicly or can't say to other artists because of confidentiality reasons. But I'm telling you, when I say that I'm connected to the promoters. I'm connected to the venues. I'm connected to the people who you need to take your career to the next level. But the thing is, a lot of people don't want to make that connection. A lot of people want to go on the internet and try to do it. And you can keep bumping your head if you want to against a wall. I tell people, eventually you're going to get permanent brain damage if you keep on doing that. You're making these moves that are killing your career. You're going back to your job every morning complaining, complaining about your supervisor, complaining about management decisions. You can't afford to go on vacation, or even if you could afford to go on vacation, you can't take off whenever you want to. You're doing these things. You're criticizing people in the industry who are out there making that money, and you're wondering how come you can't go out there and get it. It's because you don't know the formula. You're trying to emulate and do what you think that the other artists are doing on television, not knowing what goes on behind the scenes because you weren't connected to the industry, because it's a lot of cap going on the internet. So if you're following what you think is the formula, that's not the formula. So take time. I'm telling you, I can talk about this for an hour just on shaking hands, having a good vibe, chopping it up, man, like being humble. Take the time to really work that warm market, because you have to realize that you gotta have a good ground game. One of the best campaigns in history was when Barack Obama ran for office and got elected. This is not a political podcast. It has nothing to do with politics. But I will tell you, success leaves clues, so I'll use any analogy, right? He had the internet game. He had that sold up social media. But at the end of the day, they still got to make those appearances. He had the ground game. He had people on the ground to get out to vote or whatever. He showed up, made speeches, made appearances, walked through the crowds, shook hands, kissed babies, or whatever politicians do, right? And once I say this, you're going to notice it now, like, that's deep. No, that's like simple. When you do shows, when you come to the city, it's just a matter of interacting with the people. Like, the fans ain't rocking with nobody who just want to hide behind a phone, who want to hide on social media, man. Like, I grew up kinda, I ain't gonna say kinda, but I grew up, man, in a hip hop era, man. And when we were growing up, when we were releasing our music, when we were putting the mixtapes out there, a lot of people don't do that anymore as far as press up physical CDs, hand out flyers. Once we were out there, man, we had a saying, oh we trying to get our music popping in the streets, which means we going out there when everybody was riding out on Northside Drive in the cars or wherever people were. We showed up with CDs and flyers. We walked through the mall and shook hands with people. I'm from the MySpace era, where we had the songs playing on a social media profile. We marketed our music on the internet, but we went out there with the fans because you always want to have a point of contact with the fans. It's just that simple. So in order to really get it out the mud. In order to really get this thing off the ground, like, you have to have a point, a contact with your fans. You gotta have a personal contact with your fans. And you can notice during the pandemic that a lot of music really didn't pop off during the pandemic because you couldn't do shows. You couldn't do tours. You couldn't do this. You couldn't do that. You couldn't do. So a lot of good music didn't take off really like it needed to. And if it didn't take off all the way during the pandemic when nobody had a choice but to stream music, you know it ain't going to take off now, post-pandemic. The reason why I love live sound, I'm telling you, it's nothing like live sound. Man, I went to a huge concert before, life-changing. And I really got into live music because I'm like, man, there's just nothing like it. So if you weren't out there really doing a show, doing meet and greets, interacting with fans, you're really cheating yourself out of an opportunity, not just to make money, but to take your music and your craft to the next level. So when you're getting it out the mud, I can use that analogy because when you're doing something new, you're blazing a new path. You may not be on roads that are already paved. The old heads may not be embracing the new heads. And you could be a brand new artist in a city. One thing that you don't want to do is go on social media and complain that nobody is supporting you. I'm going to say that again on this podcast. If you don't take anything else from this podcast, listen to me when I say this. Don't ever go on social media talking about how people didn't support you, because you are going to kill your career because you're speaking that into the atmosphere. And when you speak that into the atmosphere, no, people are not going to support you because you said that nobody did, right? And that's a diss in the face to people who did. Don't go on social media talking about the DJs and old heads and dissing them or talking about the city don't rock with you. If you a new artist, it's to be expected that you aren't going to do the numbers that the people in the industry do. In the Jackson metro area right now, all we have is 600,000 people. In the big major metropolitan populations in the United States and the larger cities, population in the metro area is in the millions. 6, 7, 8 million, 3, 4, 5. And if you're an artist in a smaller market, and you got to realize that even a lot of the big artists can't even come down here in this market and do the numbers that you expect to do. So when you're starting off small, it's to be expected because you're a trailblazer. When you're a trailblazer, you chopping down the trees, you digging up the dirt, you in the mud, you're preparing the soil, you're preparing the foundation. I mean, you paving the other way. You paving a way for yourself, not just you, but for people behind you. So when you really getting it out the mud, you really like can't complain because you're literally making something out of nothing. I always tell people, I chopped it up and told this to a lot of people, and this is what I'm starting to realize. I'm starting to tell people, you can't succeed because you had it too easy. Everybody didn't grow up with a silver spoon in their mouth, but some people grew up in a 2-parent household. People had inheritances. People had their parents give them money, this, that, and the other. A lot of people just had it so good where they don't know how to really go out there and hustle. Hustle because you got to. Like if you don't work, you don't eat. Like growing up and knowing that you didn't have no choice but to get a job. Man, not just because you wanted, a car and, things like that, because you had to eat. It's a lot of people who grew up, they had to sell dope or whatever, not just because they wanted the J's and all the flashy stuff and the cars and the women. Some people had to sell dope out of necessity. Like it's different for somebody who grew up in a two-parent household. They sold dope, to try to look cool. And I will say on the record that I never sold dope. I could have sold dope, like I could have did all that. Like I knew people who did that. They had a respect level not to do that around me. Because I always tell people, man, if you doing that stuff, if you're doing something illegal, I don't need to know. Like I don't want to know. Like keep that to yourself. But music to me has always been my avenue. Reason why I stayed out of trouble is because I was always in the studio, man. Like music is something that I've always been able to make money off of naturally. This isn't the first studio that I built. I've always had studios. I've made money out of a home studio. I recorded clients on a home studio. I had spots. So music is something, man, that if it's your gift, you can always make money off of it. But this is the most important thing. When you get it off the ground, you got to have that sustained enthusiasm. You have to have that self-determination. You cannot quit. You have to commit not to quit. You have to commit to this thing, not to quit this thing, man, because if you don't commit, just say like behind a project, to do it for a certain amount of time, when it gets tough, it's going to quit. One of the most difficult things that I had to do was putting the studio together in the middle of a pandemic. This is the crazy thing. I had a budget to lease the studio, renovate the studio. It was supposed to cost a certain amount of money, and then I think that same month that I committed to do it, the lumber prices and everything, sheetrock, drywall, all this stuff shot up. And I couldn't quit at that time because I'm like, man, I signed a lease for a certain amount of time, and I already had a plan. I said, I'm going to open up the studio. It's going to open up at this time, 6 months. I'm going to leave a job, this, that, and other. Like, I already had it planned out. I had a committed plan to do it. So when crap hit the fan or whatever, this happened and that happened, because there's a lot happened that I'm not even going to speak on, because wise man once told me, like, something bad happened, man, don't even let everybody know, or like tell the testimony or whatever you want to call it to until a year later. So it's a lot of stuff that I done been through that I'm not even going to speak on, because it don't even matter, right? So when you get it up off the ground, you have to commit not to quit, man, and know what that time frame is that you're going to keep pushing. And when I stepped out, man, with determination, people stepped out there with me, and I'm so grateful for it because I had so many people come through. Hey JT, man, let me sew into your business. Man, what you need help with? Let me come be a helping hand. Let me come help. Do the renovation on the studio. That's good. I appreciate everybody who supported me over through the years of my career. Man, if I gave shout outs, man, we'd be on this podcast for another hour. Trust me, man. But I will say, in the beginning, you will have people who are going to support you, but you'll notice that people are going to start falling off. You're going to have people like, man, I want to rock with you. I believe in what you're doing, but hey, I'm married. I got a family. Like my wife tripping and I got to be back home or whatever. People have their own problems. People have their own list of priorities. Man, it's some people who just say, like, I know of, I'm not going to be specific, but they want to start a business right now and they're married and their wife won't even let them start a business, man. So it get real out here when you get a business off the ground, but you gotta have that certain determination. But you can't quit that business, and you gotta remember, this is the most important thing. You have to remember what your why is, because a lot of people go back to their job for the same reason, I guess, they quit their job. What do I mean by that? Somebody say that doesn't make sense, because your why in the beginning, the reason that motivated you can be the same thing that makes you want to quit if you weren't careful. What do I mean by that? A lot of people may say, man, I want to quit my job because I want to spend more time with my family. Okay, cool. People don't realize when you start a business, in the beginning times of your business, you may spend less time with your family. So some people may say, okay, I got to go back to the job to get my weekends back so I can spend more time with my family. Okay. Knowing that if you would have just stayed inside the business a little bit longer, you would have had your freedom. But that's another story. Some people, why to quit their job to go out there and really kill it, may be like, man, I want to make money. I want to be successful. When, okay, they quit their job, they don't be successful as quick as they would like to. They go back to their job, go back into that same system, and they say, well, I may not be rich, but I'm happy because I got a steady paycheck, just that and the other. A lot of people may quit their job because they say, I want financial security. Then a lot of people quit their business and go back to their job because they didn't work the business like they should have. The checks aren't rolling in like they should do. A lot of people quit their business 3 or 4 months and be like, it's not worth it. Gotta go back to the job. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with working a job, but you got to realize, if you really want to get up out that job, man, you really want to get this up off the ground, you got to commit not to quit. You got to remember what your why is. And lastly, you have to realize that it's not all about you. It's not all about me. I always tell people, man, that my music is bigger than me. My business is bigger than me. My studio is bigger than me. It's not about me. When I thought that it was just about me, it's easy to quit when you think it's just about you. It's bigger than you. And when you're starting a movement, when you're starting a business, don't make it all about you. Man, have ideas that people can take and feel like it's their own idea. When I designed my studio, I designed it in a way where it wasn't personalized to me. When a client comes in the studio, they can create whatever type of vibe they want to. It's not about me. Yeah, I'm the owner. It's not my studio. It belongs to the client or whoever rents the space at that particular time. It's much bigger than me. When I'm engineering a song for a client, it's not about me. It's not about how good my mix is and all these other things. It's about the client, and it's not just about the client. It's about the people. How are the people responding? What can we create for the people? What type of movement can we create? Can a lot of people listen to this song and feel like, oh, this is my song? Can fans attach themselves to it? Like, you really have to do this unselfishly. Realize that it's not about you. And when you realize that, it's easy to not have all that pressure on you. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday or the day before, and they asked me, how do I deal with the pressure? And I just tell them, I just apply pressure. It's not about me. It's about all the people who coming behind me. Not just about me. It's about my family. Even if the people around you may not believe in your vision, you got to believe in your vision, because some of the people who are doubting you, you are going to create a vehicle to set them financially free. Everybody is talking about how bad the city is, how bad the crime is, how bad all this stuff, is going on in Jackson. But somebody is going to have to take the opportunity, not necessarily to fight crime or put the right person in office, man. It only takes one person to inspire an entire generation. Can you be that person? Can you be that next great artist? Can you put the city on your back? When people look at you, can they identify like, man, this dude, he came from where I'm from. He been through a lot of circumstances like I did, but that person succeeded. That person wasn't favoring. He wasn't the fan favorite. He wasn't the one who looked like he was going to make it, but he went out there and did it anyway. And a lot of people say, if that person can do it, I can do it. Can you really be that person who get it out the mud? It's not about you. And I will say this, man. I always like to give words of affirmation to everyone who's listening to the podcast towards the ending. And greatness is inside of everyone who is listening to this podcast. I believe in everybody who's listening to this podcast. I know they be like, okay, you may not know me personally, but I know for a fact, if you taking the time to listen to this podcast, that you're trying to take your career to that next level. That's what it's all about. So, yeah, just know that it's not about me, especially in this part of my life where I am operating on a high level in the audio industry in Jackson, Mississippi. It's all about me pouring into other people, building up the next generation of audio engineers. So anybody who rock with me, man, you have my commitment. I'm going to continue to pour into everybody. The podcasts are going to be released on a weekly basis. If you didn't listen to the first podcast, go back and listen to it, man. It's definitely blazing. And I'm about to end this podcast. My time is up. It's been an hour, and I may have to make a part 2, man, because this really was getting good. But hey, just know that, man, if you willing to do the work, man, like, you can do it. You can get it up out the mud, and hey, put your all into this music, and you never know, you probably can be the next person who really put the city on top, man. I talk to everybody later. This is the JT Podcast. Make sure you go to the website. Make sure you go to the Instagram and follow me at Mixed by JT. www.mixedbyjt.com is the website. I will see you on the next episode.